5 o'clock hour is upon us. I'd like to call the special village board meeting on November 6, 2023, 5 p.m. To order. Need a roll call, please.
Doxy.
Here.
Venturini.
Here.
Bhatia.
Here.
Anastasio. Here. Washburn.
Here.
DeGroot.
He's here. So the first item of business is the community development ordinance. Well, wait a minute. Let me just back up a second. The purpose of today's meeting is a public hearing, and I will open the public hearing for Ordinance 25-2023, proposed zoning map amendment related to 12910 County Line Road. So the following rules apply to this public hearing and each of the following public hearings scheduled tonight. If you wish to speak, please fill out a public hearing form, which you can find on the table near the entrance. Once recognized, speakers should come to the podium and identify themselves with their name and address. Please speak clearly into the microphone. Speakers must direct all discussions towards the board. I will not allow interchange between members of the audience and the speaker. Please do not interfere with nor interject comments while another person has the floor. Please keep all comments on the particular item before the board and no longer than 5 minutes. Finally, please turn off or mute all electronic devices. So in the matter of Ordinance 25-2023, Mr. Schultz.
Mr. President, trustees, the village staff applied to amend the zoning map for approximately 370 acres. The lands lie south of Durand Avenue, State Trunk Highway 11, north of County Line Road, County Trunk Highway KR, and predominantly west of Wisconn Valley Way, State Trunk Highway 311. Staff applied to amend the map from Business Park C4 under the recently adopted zoning text amendments to C3. This change will support a broader range of commercial building types along the southeast frontage road, allow upper story residential within these areas, and preserve the ability for artisan and limited manufacturing uses to comply with state law regarding industrial tax incremental districts. The application does not contain any specific development. It seeks to apply the proposed updated commercial zoning districts best. The application follows the business designation from the land use element of a multi-jurisdictional comprehensive plan. The village no longer has a business park zoning district. However, the corresponding C3 district allows commercial and industrial development similar to the BP district, which the village initially adopted in the early 90s. The village does not have an adopted plan for local planning area 13. The Master Bicycle Plan 2030 recommends a village bicycle pathway along County Trunk Highway KR, which Racine County and the Wisconsin Department of Transportation installed when they reconstructed KR a few years ago. Park and Open Space Plan for Mount Pleasant recommends protecting some environmental corridors identified in the southwest corner of the development and surrounding the Des Plaines River watershed. The C3 district accommodates high-intensity commercial, moderate-intensity manufacturing, and upper-story residential uses. The village intends the C3 district to support those regional uses concentrated within large nodes or along regional commercial corridors. The village posted a Class 2 notice and did all the public noticing requirements. This generally follows the map amendment procedures of the zoning text. Regarding a fiscal impact, the application does not contain any specific development proposals. The village is not responsible for repaving the East Frontage Road 311 or KR, which deflates the village maintenance obligation for the subject areas compared to areas adjacent to locally controlled roadways. However, the village staff's typical fiscal impact analysis disregards roadway ownership, assuming the village should encourage more valuable development along higher trafficked roads. The village should target a post-development value of approximately $4 million per acre, using arterial replacement costs for all roadways surrounding the subject areas. The village staff will also be back to both the Plan Commission and Village Board with a separate comprehensive plan amendment to address the business designation. The village staff anticipates this designation will shift to a high-intensity mixed-use designation, which just better describes the type of development out there. The village staff do not recommend any conditions for approval, and the Plan Commission also just recommended approval of this ordinance about a half hour ago. And with that, both the village staff and the Plan Commission recommend approval of the ordinance.
Okay, this is where we'd usually have the petitioner come up and add a few words, but being that we're the petitioner, this gives you a second whack at the cack here. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Sam?
Really just, we did all the work to update our commercial and industrial zoning districts to better provide flexibility for all our commercial industrial property owners throughout the village. This takes the remainder of kind of Area 1 of TID 5, which is owned by Foxconn now, is business park, as is most of the other areas in TID 5. But we thought these areas along the frontage road made more sense for a more commercially focused zoning designation instead of a more industrial focused zoning designation. Both districts allow both commercial and industrial, but C3 allows more commercial, including some residential, while C4, which is the remainder of the Foxconn campus or like the new Microsoft campus, that does not allow residential use. So that's kind of the designation and why we thought it would be a good proactive time to make the switch.
So the C3 allows for a more mixed use, where the C4 is just heavier business and industrial.
Correct, and also the C3 does allow for many uses that you'd expect to see along an interstate highway that we'd like to keep out of our business park districts, like residential, but also there are some levels of other types of commercial uses that we wouldn't allow in a more intense commercial area. So, I think it's just applying the right zoning district to the right area.
Okay. We can ask Sam more questions, but let's wait until that business item comes before us. We're still in the public hearing part of it. So at this point, I will invite the public to speak on this matter. I have nobody signed up for it. So I'll ask anybody in chambers here, or anybody wishing to speak either for or against this. Now's a good time to speak. Going once, going twice. You have head shaking sideways, that means carry on. So at this point, having been able to have our statutory obligation, we can close public comment on this, and then we'll move on to motion.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 25-2023.
Second.
So I hear a motion and a second from the board. Any thoughts or questions or conversation for Sam at this point?
No, I don't have any question. We discussed this a while back, about an hour ago, at the Planning Commission, and as Sam has pointed out, this rezoning allows the village, it gives you that additional flexibility to add. So it doesn't really take away much, but it adds more, flexibility to add maybe residential and more commercial. So we had a brief discussion and presentation, and I'm all for that. It's a win-win for the village, and also like we heard, it's not for any specific business in mind right now, but it opens up the opportunity for many future businesses.
Appreciate your thoughts. Nancy, did you have anything?
I think one of the other, when I first read through the ordinance and thought it through, what I really like about the change is that Highway 94 that it abuts is a vision corridor for us. It's, as you come into Mount Pleasant from Kenosha County, or you come down from Milwaukee County, I-94 is a vision corridor. So I like the fact that we can do some interesting mixed-use things in this district, and that it won't be overly industrialized. We wouldn't want to have, the factory right up on the highway, would we? So I think that this gives us a lot of, as Ram stated, it gives us a lot of flexibility in uses, and potentially some very nice uses along that view corridor. So in that regard, it was approved unanimously by the Plan Commission.
Not only a vision corridor, but also an opportunity for eye candy. I mean, we could do some cool things along that strip.
Very much so, very much so.
Mr. President?
Yeah.
Sam, will this be similar to what we see going north once we get up over to Oak Creek area?
Yeah, I think in both north and south, you'll see a mixture of commercial and industrial development as those areas infill over time. You know, as you head south, a lot of that is probably a little bit more industrial focused, but some of those users like Uline have a pretty decent mix of office and industrial, so that kind of mitigates it from that perspective. Then obviously when you're heading north past Galadonia into Oak Creek, there's a much greater mix. You know, you have IKEA's retail and then some residential, newer residential right up against the highway. So this would certainly be pretty similar to that.
Question for Sam. In our packet, we had two maps, the North Map Amendment and the South Map Amendment. So is this proposal then would include the land to the west, I guess, if that's Wisconn Valley Way, in the North Map Amendment?
Correct. In the
Okay.
North Map Amendment, it's just the land west of Wisconn, between Wisconn and the frontage road.
And then in the south of Brown Road, it's on both sides?
Correct. It's mostly on the west side, but there is some on the east side as well.
Okay.
The east side has some environmental corridors on it. So the really, instead of parcel lines being the major boundary between kind of the major Foxconn campus and the developable area, or roadways, it's really more that environmental corridor that's kind of a natural buffer between the two. So, you know, that's why we thought including some of the C3 areas on the east side of the roadway made sense, because you could allow that kind of tucked up within that environmental corridor, and then there will be the environmental corridor and then the industrial campus to the east. So,
And is the dotted line in the north one, is that the railroad tracks?
dotted line in the north
Like right
area.
here?
I think it's a section line.
That's the item number 2.
Oh,
That's a CS one.
in the North Map Amendment, there's a dotted line coming off of 58th Road and going south?
Yeah, I believe that's a section line, if
Okay.
I am reading it correctly.
Okay.
Regardless, it's not.
It's not a
Germane to any of the
proposed
subject
road or
areas.
anything like that? It's not a planned road or anything?
No, we don't have a planned road on that area.
Looks good to me.
Okay. Okay, so in the matter of ordinance 25-2023, roll call, please.
Doxy,
Aye.
Ventrini,
Aye.
Batya,
Aye.
Anastasio,
Aye.
Washburn,
Aye.
DeGroot,
Aye, that motion carries. So let's move on to the next item, which would be the 4217 County H Certified Survey Map, CSM 23-13.
Mr. President, trustees.
Motion?
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve the 4217 County Highway Certified Survey Map as proposed.
Second.
So I have motion and second. Back to Mr. Schultz.
This one's a little bit simpler. This is land the village owns, kind of sandwiched between the Microsoft property and the Foxconn property. When the village acquired it, it was obviously multiple different tax parcels, which continues to this day. So this is just a certified survey map, excuse me, to consolidate all of those parcels together into one single parcel for common ownership. It also dedicates the appropriate right-of-way to clean up some of the roadway lands, and set specific easements on the property along some anticipated utility corridors. So this is truly, our favorite word, a cleanup. This is really just a map cleanup to consolidate the parcel ownership together.
Well, because it is a cleanup, I mean, it cleans up the roadway abandonments and well agreements and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yes, exactly. We also included at the end a pretty detailed fiscal note. And, this, again, isn't in relation to any specific development. So the way we went about this fiscal note is essentially backing into a value for the entire property. that would more or less, kind of make the village whole in the long run and pay its fair share of obligations. So that estimated new development value for all the 200 and some odd acres is $240 million. So that's what we would project. That equates to about just over $1 million an acre, like $1.2 million an acre, is what we would target for a development value out there. Obviously, there are some environmental areas within there. The Lamperrick Creek runs through and stuff, so that's an average across a lot of property. It'll probably be a little bit, more concentrated in the north area and the south area between the Lamperrick Creek, but across all the property, that's the target value.
I have a question about that fiscal note. Was this then kind of created so that if a development came, it would be, you could analyze it, or this is just analyzing what we already have?
It is, it's a little bit of both, but it's mainly the former when development comes in. And to be clear, this is not, we don't just do this fiscal analysis for just this development. We do it on
Right.
most of the developments that come in the door. But yeah, the tool is just meant to be part of your decision-making process. It's not, you don't have to deny something if it doesn't meet the goals. We like to call out there are nonprofit users or educational users that don't pay property tax. So if they went through this analysis, they would look pretty bad, right? Because they're not paying their fair share of costs, but they're bringing something else to the table. So it's not the be-all, end-all. It's just more information for you to absorb when you're looking at decision-making.
And is the 40-to-1 private-public ratio, is that a standard that we like to have all the time, or?
It's
is that-
meant to be something that looks at if, in large averages, you're going to repave a road in 20 years and you're going to reconstruct it in 40 years. So in 40 years, is it kind of paying its fair share in the long, long run? So that's why we like to provide you the information, because we think it's valuable for decision-making purposes, but also caution you and not overemphasizing it, because averaging costs over 40 years is more of an educational exercise than it is like a hard cost. So it's just making sure that we're kind of looking at the fiscal back end of land development.
Okay, thank you.
Helpful, I would say, in our strategic planning, and helpful for Public Works Director to understand, help him plan forward, plan ahead. But the other thing to note on this particular project is that at this time, anyway, we don't control or own either County Trunk Highway H or KR. So if those roads needed work today, we wouldn't have to pay for that work at all. But so this is good planning, thinking ahead if at some point we become owners of those, to have an idea of the cost that would be needed.
And we also like to just encourage more valuable development along those higher trafficked roads. So we take them into account in the sheet just to make sure that, along a road like 20 or KR or something, that we are encouraging higher density development as opposed to encouraging that within the middle of a neighborhood or something like that.
Okay.
Good. Okay, so on the matter then of CSM 23-13, the County H, 4217 County H survey map. Roll call, please.
Doxy,
Aye.
Ventrini,
Aye.
Bhatia,
Aye.
Anastasio,
Aye.
Washburn,
Aye.
DeGroot.
Aye, that motion carries.
President?
Yes.
I'd like to move to adjourn.
Second.
I hear a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We stand adjourned.